Ever wish you had more time? In a day, I mean, who doesn't, really?
Right.
Well, today we're diving into Zenzen Tran's Automate Your Way to Peak Productivity to, well, uncover how we can kind of add years back to our lives.
Yeah, and we're not talking about, some science fiction life extension here.
No, no, no. This is real deal stuff.
It is. And what's so fascinating about Tran's approach is how he actually quantifies these potential time savings. Imagine like reclaiming a year and a half of your life.
A year and a half? What?
Yeah, 1.5 years currently spent on tasks that honestly a computer could probably handle for you.
Okay, so that's an extra year and a half to spend on, well, things we actually enjoy doing.
Exactly. Or even, potentially an extra $1.25 million earned if you can leverage that reclaimed time effectively.
Okay, you had me at extra time, but the financial aspect, that's a nice bonus. I gotta be honest, though, the whole idea of automation, it can feel kind of intimidating.
I hear you.
Are we talking about becoming coding wizards overnight? Because I don't know if that's in the cards for me.
Not at all. And Tran really emphasizes this. It's not about, mastering complex tech. It's really more about a shift in mindset.
Okay.
It's about stepping back, identifying those repetitive tasks that are like draining your time and energy, and then crucially finding ways to automate them.
Wow.
So you can focus on, the things that truly matter.
So it's about working smarter, not harder. I like it. But where do we even begin?
Well, Tran talks about this idea of conducting a task audit, which might sound a little formal,
A little bit.
but really it's just about bringing, more awareness to where your time is actually going each day.
You mean like actually noticing how much time we spend like just scrolling through emails or trying to, wrangle meeting invites and all that?
Exactly. Maybe even more importantly, I think, the book highlights this critical difference between what Tran calls high-value tasks, those things that really require your unique skills, your human touch, versus those low-value tasks that are, frankly, ripe for automation.
Okay. I like where this is going.
You want to make sure you're focusing your energy where it truly counts, right?
Absolutely. So let's break that down then for our listeners. What are some examples of these low value tasks that we can kind of hand over to, well, the automation robots? Give us the examples then. What can we automate?
Well, Tran gives a bunch of great examples. And honestly, you might find yourself relating to several of these. Think about things like, just sorting through those endless emails, right?
Yeah.
Scheduling and rescheduling meetings,
Not the worst.
data entry, setting reminders,
Okay.
even managing social media posts.
Yeah.
All of these things can just eat up your time. But, they don't necessarily require your unique human touch, right?
It's funny you mentioned social media because that's something I've always thought about automating. But then I always get nervous about, sounding like a robot.
Sure.
How can we make sure that automation doesn't kind of suck the personality out of our tasks?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that's where Tran's emphasis on breaking tasks down into these smaller steps is really, really helpful. And he uses this analogy of a coffee maker,
Okay.
which I think is particularly relatable, for those of us who can't function without our morning caffeine.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Coffee and automation, you have my attention.
Right. So just like brewing the perfect cup of coffee, it involves this specific sequence of steps: adding water, grinding beans, hitting that brew button.
Yeah.
Automation thrives on this kind of clarity. You're basically creating a clear recipe, if you will, that your automation system can follow like to a T.
So instead of me trying to remember like a million little steps in my workflow, I can just offload that mental load to, my trusty automation system. But what about those situations that pop up that require me to actually like make a judgment call?
Sure.
Can automation even handle those curveballs?
That's where this whole concept of what Tran calls triggers and conditions comes into play. He describes a trigger as like the flick of a light switch.
Okay.
It's the event that sets this whole automation process in motion.
So for example, a trigger could be like receiving an email from a specific client or maybe even just a certain time of day when I want a task to happen automatically.
You got it. Exactly. And Tran dives into these different types of triggers. You've got like your time-based triggers,
Okay.
event-based triggers, action-based, and even get this conditional triggers, each adding like a layer of sophistication to your automation
Okay. Wow.
to make sure it's happening precisely when you need it.
This is starting to sound like having a personal assistant who can like anticipate my needs.
Yeah.
But you mentioned conditional triggers, and I'll be honest, that's a new one for me. Tell me more about that.
So think of conditional triggers as that. that if this, then that
Yeah.
logic, right?
Yeah.
This is really putting you firmly in the driver's seat because it makes sure that tasks only occur when certain, very specific conditions are met.
Right.
It's not just about automating for the sake of automating. It's about automating strategically.
So it's like setting up those automated email responses,
Right.
but with like an extra layer of intelligence behind them.
Exactly.
Can you give us an example of like how a conditional trigger might work like in real life?
Oh, absolutely. So imagine this. You only get those, follow-up emails if someone hasn't responded to your initial message after, let's say, like 3 days.
Okay.
That right there, that's a conditional trigger in action.
Got it.
And it saves, honestly, it saves everyone from that kind of unnecessary back and forth.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Or let's say you want to automate social media posts,
Right.
but only, when your audience is actually most active online.
Makes sense.
You can set a conditional trigger to make that happen, right?
Yeah.
So it's about working with your automation tools
Mm-hmm.
and not, letting them kind of run the show completely.
Right, right. Take control.
Exactly.
That's a crucial point because I think it is easy to get a little carried away with this stuff, right?
It is.
And try to automate everything. And Tran even talks about the dangers of that, this over automation.
He does. He does. He emphasizes that, automation is this ongoing process. Like it's not a set it and forget it thing.
Right.
You're constantly fine-tuning.
Okay.
Think of it like tuning a musical instrument, right?
Yeah.
You adjust and you tweak until it sounds, just right.
So it's not about reaching like automation perfection,
Right.
overnight, but it's more about finding what works best for you, over time.
Absolutely. And just like you wouldn't expect, a car engine to run flawlessly forever without any maintenance.
Right.
Your automation systems, they need those regular checkups, those adjustments.
So we need to become like automation mechanics, kind of.
In a way, yeah.
I like it. I like it. What are some red flags then that we should watch out for to make sure that our systems are running smoothly?
Well, I mean, Tran highlights a couple of common pitfalls.
Okay.
One is, as you said, that over-automation, right?
Yeah.
You automate so many tasks that you lose track of, what's happening, which kind of defeats the whole purpose.
Right.
The other is, kind of the flip side, which is missing those opportunities to automate. So you end up doing things manually that honestly could be automated.
Right.
So it's about finding that sweet spot, right?
Yes.
Not too much, not too little, just the right amount to make your work life smoother and more efficient.
Find that balance. Okay, so once we find that balance, where does this all lead? What's the big picture of all of this automation? What are we working toward?
Well, Trans paints this inspiring vision of what he calls a personal automation ecosystem.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. And this is where all those individual automated tasks that you've set up, they work together, seamlessly.
Okay.
Picture a system that, it automatically schedules a meeting for you, sends out those reminders, maybe generates a report, updates your CRM, all, without you having to lift a finger.
Wow. That sounds like a peak productivity nirvana right there.
Right.
But it's not just about, efficiency, right? I mean, there's a larger benefit to all of this automation that I think we should touch on.
Absolutely. I think ultimately, automation, it's not just about saving time or even money. It's about, creating this more balanced, more sustainable approach to work in general. And by freeing ourselves from those, I'll say it again, those repetitive tasks, we gain that time and that energy, for the things that truly matter, both, professionally and personally.
Right. So it all circles back to that, pretty incredible statistic we mentioned earlier, the potential to reclaim 1.5 years of your life.
Exactly.
Just through automation. That's 1.5 years to invest in relationships, hobbies, personal growth,
Right.
or even just like quiet moments of reflection.
Yes, it's about using automation as a tool to create a more, fulfilling, meaningful life overall.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of automation, I think the question we want to leave you with is this. What will you automate today? What tasks are silently draining your time and energy? This deep dive, it's just the starting point, right? Now it's up to you to take these principles from Zenson Tran's book and create your own, unique automation journey.